the will to serve. In his teachings to Sanatana Goswami, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu begins with this premise, and then he builds from this seed into an incredible philosophy of how the material existence is working and how the spiritual nature is existing, who we are, what is our relationship with other living beings, what is our relationship with God and all of his various incarnations and manifestations and expansions, what is the spiritual world, what is our relationship with material nature. And then he goes into the deeper, higher, ecstatic rasas of love between the pure soul and Krishna in the spiritual realm. But it's all growing from the simple seed of one principle. Jivara Swarupoi Krishnara Nityadas. That we are all eternal servants of Krishna. And we are all completely dependent on the grace of Krishna. Always. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yobadadati Kama. There is one supreme eternal Bhagavan. And there are infinitesimals who are all eternal. Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanata. The jiva atmas. And those jivas are always subordinate and dependent on the Supreme One, as a sun ray is dependent on the sun for its existence. To serve with sincerity. And we have been given such beautiful opportunities to serve. In the Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami tells that whatever of the 9 processes of bhakti we perform, and sevanam is one of them, doing service, archanam, worshipping deity, Saravana kirtana smarana bandhana pada sevanudasya pujara sakijana atma nivedana. Of all these wonderful devotional opportunities we have, what gives substance to them all is the chanting of the holy names. Varahadev appeared in this world out of complete compassion, Dinabandhu, for the most bereft, for the most needy. For the earth planet herself, Bhumi Devi, was in such need at that time. And she's the mother for all the inhabitants of the earth. So as far as environmentalism, if Krishna, the Supreme Absolute Truth, the God of all gods, descends into this world in such an unbelievably incredible form, just to restore the balance of the earth and all of her children in it, then if we're going to please Krishna, we should also be thinking like that. How to see all of the energies and all of the facilities that Mother Earth is giving us as Krishna's property to be used for Krishna's service. We have no right to exploit anything for ourselves. That's an unnatural state of consciousness that is cause of all suffering and disconnection. This body is Krishna's property entrusted in our care. Our families, our property, our wealth, everything, our intelligence and our abilities. To be conscious of Krishna is not like Kamsa. He was afraid of Krishna while he was trying to exploit things for himself. Krishna consciousness is so simple. How can I please Krishna? That's all that matters. Nothing else matters. Everything else is a distraction. And Varahadev, when he lifted Mother Earth, just by his touch, he impregnated her. Karanadakshayi Vishnu, simply by his glance, he impregnates Mother Nature, Prakriti, with every living entity that's meant to take birth in all the 8,400,000 species of life. One moment of a glance, that is his power. God is great. And Srimad-Bhagavatam and Krishna book tells the story about that, the child that was born. But I'm not going to discuss that. But you should read Krishna book. It's a very good story. That same one supreme absolute truth. Well, I'm going to kind of go into this next story. I'm going to try to do it chronologically. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, who comes in this age of Kali, in the mood of Sri Radha, to give the highest jewel of not only pure devotional service, but the pure devotional service of the residents of Vrindavan. And he's giving it even to the least qualified. If simply by associating with his devotees, those people become sincere, he's willing to give it through this Harinam Sankirtan. So as he was coming from his journey to Vrindavan, he was returning to Jagannath Puri, and he came to a village called Varahanagar. So I'm trying to make a connection. And this Varahanagar, Srila Prabhupada explains, is only about 4 kilometers from Calcutta. Today, it's still there. It's a suburb. And while Lord Chaitanya was traveling through, he came to a Brahmin's house. This Brahmin's name was Raghunath. And he was very much absorbed in reciting Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Mahapurana. So when Lord Chaitanya was at his house, he heard Raghunath speaking from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, reading. He was just reading about the glories of pure unalloyed devotion. And Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. He's conquered by that pure unalloyed devotion. It was giving him such ecstasy as he was hearing about it. Lord Chaitanya danced ecstatically. It describes in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavatam that he was unconscious to the whole external world, apparently. He was absorbed in just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories of bhakti, dancing and dancing. How he danced, it was the most beautiful thing the world has ever experienced. And he turned to that Brahmin and said, read on, keep reading. And seeing Lord Chaitanya so ecstatic, this Brahmin more enthusiastically read Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya kept dancing. He said, read on. He kept reading and reading and dancing and reading and dancing. How many of you, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, dance in ecstasy? Most of us, we're just trying to stay awake. But this is the difference between spiritual advancement and our condition, so we should be humble. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam being narrated, was dancing for 9 continuous hours. And finally, Lord Caitanya looked at Raghunath and said, "You have given me so much happiness. No one reads and discusses Srimad-Bhagavatam so nicely as you. Today I give you the name Bhagavat Acharya." And he not only gave him the name, but he gave him the full realization of the essence of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Prema Bhakti. Why? Because he was reading sincerely. And we've already discussed Prabhupada's definition of sincerity. The Supreme Lord Krishna personally came to his home. And because he pleased him so much, the Lord was so pleased with his devotees' humble efforts, he was dancing and dancing and dancing and crying, and his hairs were standing on end, and his limbs were trembling. And he gave that Brahman the ultimate realizations. And I believe Raghunath Bhagavat Acharya is the 76th branch of the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that is forever. Eventually he came back to Jagannath Puri. And one day, Lord Chaitanya brought Nityananda Prabhu to a secluded place. At the time, Nityananda Prabhu, he was wandering around Jagannath Puri because he is Balaram. And he was just absorbed in ecstatic love in this holy place, having darshan of Jagannath, being with all the devotees, constantly Hari Katha, Hari Kirtan. Where else is there to go? He was there with Swarup Damodar Goswami and Gadadhar Pandit and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and all these great devotees. And now Lord Chaitanya has finally come back after being away for a long time. And he told Nityananda Prabhu that there are so many people who are fallen in the web of Maya's attractions. They are distracted from pure devotional service, attached to so many petty material things. Many of them are so arrogant and so plagued with all kinds of philosophical distractions. What are you doing here in Puri, enjoying with the devotees? You should go there. That's my mission. I have descended into this world to give Krishna consciousness, to give pure bhakti to even the most fallen and unqualified people. You are non-different from me. To please me, go to Bengal and preach this message. And Nityananda Prabhu left Puri and brought a group of people with him. Abhiram Thakur, Gadadhar Das, Purandar Pandit, so many, Krishna Das. Nityananda Prabhu was so absorbed in wanting to please Lord Chaitanya. And there's nothing that pleases Lord Chaitanya more than being an instrument of his compassion toward fallen, suffering souls. By reawakening their dormant prem bhakti, by giving them a sincere service attitude and the holy names of Krishna. So Nityananda Prabhu was so ecstatic. He is Nityananda, eternally ecstatic. And by his association, he infused so much love of Krishna to awaken in the hearts of his devotees. Just by glancing upon them, he impregnated his own love. It was really quite a journey. Vrindavan Das Thakur explains it in quite good detail. In fact, super excellent detail. Abhiram. He was so absorbed in remembering Krishna as they were all chanting and dancing together, he stood in the middle of a road in a threefold bending form, absorbed in Krishna, without moving for 9 hours. And all the devotees just chanted around him in kirtan until he started moving again. It's not that they were saying, Abhiram, come on, let's... They were all as intoxicated as he was. And they were going to the road to Bengal, toward the Ganga. And they were just chanting and dancing, and they asked one of the villagers, is this the road to the Ganga? They said, you were on the road to the Ganga, but that's 6 miles. You went 6 miles off the road here. It's that way to get back to it. So they smiled and said, all right. And then they started going back to that road. And some hours later, they asked someone, are we on the road to the Ganga? They said, you're going the wrong direction. It's 20 miles that way. They were chanting and dancing. Hours later, they asked someone, are we on the road to the Ganga? They said, hi, road to the Ganga. You're in the wrong direction. It's like 50 miles that way. They smiled. They continued their kirtan, dancing happily, chanting the holy names. And somehow or other, by Nityananda's mercy, they arrived at the Ganga. In Panihati. Does that mean I should end? Tattvavit Prabhu. Thank you. This is in celebration of Nityananda Prabhu's arrival in Panihati. So, he went to the house of Raghava Pandit. It's interesting. I'm going to go back a little. When Lord Caitanya was coming back just before, on his way to Puri, he stopped in Panihati and went to Raghava Pandit's house. And he told Raghava Pandit that you should lovingly serve Nityananda Prabhu. And that way I will be pleased with you. And then he turned to another devotee, Makaradvaj, and said, you should lovingly serve Raghava Pandit, and then I will be pleased with you. So Lord Caitanya was always teaching people that what pleases him most is to be the servant of his servant. So when Nityananda Prabhu came to Raghava Pandit's house, Raghava Pandit was so happy. And Nityananda Prabhu, with all of his associates, he inspired them to continue their kirtan on another level. As he induced everyone to chant, his glance, because Nityananda Prabhu, Kaviraj Goswami tells that his love for Lord Caitanya was like Lakshman's love for Ram. The same tattva. He would always be singing beautiful kirtans describing how Lord Caitanya and Krishna are non-different. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. And he was sharing that message with the world. And he was so intoxicated with that love, and he was so compassionate. When he glanced on someone in that mood, then he would infuse that person with ecstasy. So he looked at the devotees, and as he looked at them, like never before, their love for Krishna was blazing. They couldn't even contain themselves. As soon as he looked at someone, they would fall unconscious in ecstasy. Then they'd get up and dance. And when he would scan the courtyard and look around, as he was going, everyone was falling. It's described by Vrindavan Das Thakur like a grove of banyan trees during a cyclone. A heavy wind, they're all just... And then he told them, dance. And he started to dance, and they danced. And one of the devotees, it describes, he danced up a tree. He didn't climb the tree. He just danced up a tree, a high tree. And he's an adult devotee. And he danced up to the top of a tree, and then he started dancing along one of the branches to the thinnest part of the branch, and at the very end of the top of the tree, he was dancing on a leaf. And he didn't fall down. And another devotee danced to the very, very top of a huge tree and then screamed out, "I am a cowherd boy!" And he jumped from the top of the tree and kept dancing. And another devotee, I guess he was so intoxicated by Harinam, by the holy names of Krishna, he went to a place where there were 7 betel nut trees. And they're really big and tall. And he lovingly embraced all of them at once, but because he was dancing, he accidentally uprooted them all. And was dancing with these gigantic trees. Obviously, the trees were liberated. Then Nityananda Prabhu, after dancing himself and infusing this dance in everyone else, he sat on the altar of Raghava Pandit. And he told Raghava Pandit, "I am very pleased if you give me a garland of fresh, fragrant kadamba flowers." Raghava Pandit said that this is not possible because the kadamba tree only gives flowers during a certain season. And there's never a flower any other time. This is not the season. This is the opposite time of the year. And Lord Nityananda smiled. He said, "Just go into your courtyard and see if there's any kadamba flowers." So Raghava Pandit, with great faith, he went into his courtyard and he saw so many, the most beautiful kadamba flowers he ever seen, with such intoxicating, sweet, celestial fragrance. And they were all growing on a lime tree. This is the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. Even the sourest people could become supremely sweet by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. So he was astonished, but he understood that this astonishment was not important. What's important is to make the garland to please Nityananda. So he made the garland, he brought it and put it on him, and everybody was looking in great wonder. Where did you get these kadamba flowers? From a lime tree. And Nityananda was smiling. And they danced. They had kirtan. special kirtan. 24 hours a day for 3 months, nonstop. No one slept, no one drank a drop of water, no one ate any food, and no one got tired. It's not that they were looking at the clock, when is 3 months going to be. They were totally beyond this world, in the spiritual world. That is the standard that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu gave us of what real Prem Kirtan is about. Completely beyond material existence. They were totally sustained and nourished. No one was hungry, no one was thirsty, no one was tired, because they were infused with every blessing through the sound of the holy names. Because by Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, he empowered all of the devotees in that way. Then Nityananda Prabhu said, we'll go to the villages. But just I'm a cowherd boy, so bring me some nice ornaments. So somehow or other appeared all these precious jewels and necklaces and armlets and ankle bells and bracelets, and they decorated Nityananda Prabhu in all these beautiful colored silks. And then all his associates, they were in the moods of cowherd boys too. They started decorating themselves, and they all brought the kirtan into the villages near Panihati. And everyone Nityananda Prabhu glanced upon, the same effect was happening. And one thing that's very specially discussed is there were little children, maybe 5 to 8 years old or less. And Nityananda Prabhu glanced upon them and requested them to chant the holy names. And they fell in love with Nityananda Prabhu. They just absolutely loved him. He was their brother, he was their father, he was their best friend, he was their everything. And Nityananda Prabhu was feeding them and playing with them just like a little cowherd boy. And then he induced them to chant and dance in kirtan. These little tiny children, they were so empowered by kirtan. They were roaring out the holy names with the strength and power of the roar of a lion. That was their enthusiasm. Everyone, let's try to do that. Was a good try. In Nityananda Prabhu's presence, even one of those little 5-year-old children was roaring thousands of times more than all of us put together. It wasn't that they were trying to be lions. It's just that they had such of the power, the Shakti of grace, of Nityananda's grace. They had such enthusiasm. They wanted to spread the sound of the holy name to the whole universe. That's why they were chanting and roaring so loud. And they danced. And these little tiny children, they would see a tree and lovingly embrace the tree, but because they were dancing inattentively, the tree was uprooted. And they were dancing with trees. And people were watching. What has Nitai done to these children? The children did not eat any food or drink any water or take any sleep for 1 month. They simply danced and chanted in ecstatic love. And they didn't go home. And the parents, every single one of the parents, they were not like, why did you join the Hare Krishna movement? The parents were so happy. They were so grateful. They were as blissful as their children to see their children getting such blessing and becoming so totally enlightened, self-realized to the highest platform. They were just offering their profuse gratitude to Nityananda Prabhu for his mercy upon them. This is the way he was transforming everyone. Village to village. The women, the men, the children, he was having the same effect on everyone. Whatever their social status was, he was awakening the eternal souls. Then he came, and I'm going to end after this, to Adi Saptagram. That was the hardest place. No spiritual people wanted to go to Adi Saptagram. Because in those days, there was a class of people who were really, really materialistic. And they were known for being really greedy and really manipulative. They were mostly traders of precious metals, gold merchants specifically. And they were considered to be perhaps the hardest people to get through because they just had so much of a passion for greed and money and wealth. But one of the devotees of Nityananda Prabhu, whose name was Udarandat, he lived there. He was a member of that community, but he was also a loving friend of Lord Caitanya and Lord Nityananda. He was a devotee. And by his influence living in Adi Saptagram, he affected everyone. His example, he was like them in almost every way as far as externals. But his compassion, his love, his devotion, his wisdom opened the hearts of everyone in Adi Saptagram to receive Nityananda Prabhu's mercy. When Lord Nityananda came there, Udarandat was so happy. He welcomed him in his home. And he basically introduced Nityananda Prabhu to the whole city. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu glanced upon all of these gold merchants and infused them with devotion. And then he himself began to dance and to chant. And soon the whole of Adi Saptagram was one huge kirtan. Nityananda Prabhu personally. Now these are homes that no sadhu or saint or anybody would ever go in these homes because they were considered very contaminated. But Nityananda Prabhu, with the inspiration of Udarandat, who was so compassionate to these people, they were his people. Lord Nityananda Prabhu was going house to house. and having kirtan and katha with the families. And he had such an effect that Vrindavan Das Thakur tells in his Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat that the type of kirtan that Lord Nityananda Prabhu was having in Adi Saptagram, the least likely of any place, was equal to any of the kirtans in Navadvip. And he said to describe the glories of these kirtans cannot be possible even in hundreds and hundreds of years. Nothing like this has ever been seen. They didn't give up their professions, but they understood that the gold of this world had no value whatsoever compared to the real wealth of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda's grace. Parama Karuna Pahundui Jana Nitai Gorachandra. Tava Avatara Sara Siromani Kevala Anandakanda. And what is their grace? They're giving this message of pure, uncontaminated, unconditional, uninterrupted, loving service to Krishna, which is accessible through the congregational chanting of the holy names. They discovered what real wealth was. And then they were using their gold and everything else for the highest purpose, with sincerity, which means without selfishness or ulterior motives, but in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya, one time, the brother of a great devotee, was traveling with Lord Nityananda to Puri. And there was many other people. And he was really confused. So he left the party. And he came to Puri early, separately. And he was really sincere soul. But he was confused. So he went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he said, I don't understand why everyone worships this Nityananda Prabhu. He's supposed to be a renunciate. This was before he was married. And he said, and he's wearing all these valuable jewels. He has so many ornaments on. I've never seen a sadhu like that before. And Lord Chaitanya smiled. He said, he's a cowherd boy. Cowherd boys like to decorate themselves. He said, let me tell you this. Nityananda Prabhu has no attachment to anything in this world. Those ornaments on him are the 9 processes of devotional service personified. And anyone who sees him will attain pure love for Krishna, if we can appreciate that. And that person was transformed. The Purushartha Siromani, the crest jewel of all jewels, is what Lord Gauranga and Lord Nityananda have come to give to this world. The jewel of love for God, of Krishna Prem. And Kevala Anandakanda. And the means of acquiring that jewel is so simple and so joyful. To dance and to sincerely, in a service spirit, which comes in the association of devotees, to chant the beautiful names of Sri Sri Radha and Ras Bihari. Thank you very much.